Namaskar and a very good evening to everyone. I'm Mukta Kandial. Welcome you all in our this live interactive session of webinar where we are celebrating our Cyber Jaagrookta Diwas. And as you all know, for the month of August, we are running our cyber series on safe digital gaming. And the topic we have today on the table for discussion is digital games, physical and socio-emotional well-being. And providing us more guidance on today's topic, we are also joined by one of the experts in the studio. And the expert we have in the studio is Dr. Yatan Pal Singh Balhara. Sir is additional professor of psychiatry at All India Institute of Medical Sciences, AIIMS, New Delhi. Namaskar Yatan sir, बहुत-बहुत स्वागत है आपके सत्र में. And to all our viewers and students out there, I would like to inform that if you have any questions, any queries that you have in our mind regarding today's session or regarding this whole series, you can call us on our number that is 8800440559. You can also write to us at cybersafety@cit.nic.in. And apart from these two medium, you can also connect with us through our YouTube channel. Yes, you are watching this program, this session live on our YouTube channel, that is ncertofficial. So you can drop your questions, any queries through live chat box option over there. And you're also watching this program live on PM eVidya channel number 6 to channel number 12. So let's start today's session without any further delay, and I'll directly head to Yatan sir and asking sir, what all details and all information we will be gathering in our today's session that is based on digital games here.
Thank you, Muktaji. As the title of the session suggests, we will be discussing an important aspect related to gaming. And that aspect has to do with the health and well-being of human beings who interact with gaming platforms. So I'll be discussing the aspects that are relevant for the physical health as well as socio-emotional well-being. So these are the two themes that I'm going to cover in this presentation.
Okay, so I think we can start, sir.
Sure. So as I mentioned, the session is going to focus on well-being, well-being from physical perspective and well-being from socio and emotional perspective. Before we begin with what exactly happens to our health when we engage with gaming in an unhealthy manner, let me first try to explain what this all interaction is about. So when we discuss gaming, we are actually talking about an interaction. It's an interaction between the game and the player who is playing this game. So it's a kind of a human gaming interaction where there are factors that are related to gaming that play their part. There are factors related to the individual or the person who is engaged in gaming. They play their part. And besides these two main agents, there is the role of the environment, and the environment also plays a key role. Now this interaction is important from multiple reasons. And as I go through my presentation, I'll be touching upon these aspects gradually. One of the few things that I would like to emphasize in this presentation is that when we talk of gaming, we need to be clear that it's a conscious activity. It's a conscious activity in the sense that one decides that one has to engage in gaming. And since it's a conscious human behavior, there are motives behind it. The motives can be seen as reasons why a particular person engages with gaming. It may be for recreational purposes, it may be for spending some time, it may be for connecting with others, and there are many more that I'll touch upon in my presentation. So that's one part of it. There is another theme that we need to be aware of, that whenever we engage in any behavior, and that is true for gaming as well, there are impacts as well as implications. That means that when a particular person decides to game, it leads to certain consequences, and those consequences have their implications. Now these impacts and implications can be both desirable, that is what a person actually expects, something that is in keeping with the motive for which gaming was actually initiated, or the kind of purpose it was intended to serve. But at the same time, there can be certain undesirable consequences. By undesirable, what I mean is that to begin with, the person who decided to game did not expect or did not want to have these consequences. But since the gaming behavior, it rolled out in a way, or it happened in a way which led to certain problems, and those consequences or implications become undesirable. And it is these undesirable impacts and implications that we are going to focus in today's webinar. There are many undesirable implications that can result from gaming, but I will restrict specifically to those that are relevant in context of well-being. Well-being from physical health perspective and well-being from social and emotional well-being perspective. Now, to give you an overview and to give you the extent or the extreme kind of impact gaming can have in terms of undesirable consequences, we can categorize them into different groups. So the undesirable consequences of gaming in context of well-being can be related to physical health. That is, it can adversely impact certain physical health related issues in human beings. It can impact our mental health in a negative way, and that's one of the key areas of concern when it comes to excessive and problematic gaming. But besides these two domains, there are other domains which become relevant, specifically in context of students. For example, excessive and problematic gaming can impact their academic performance. It can also impact their financial health, or it can have financial implications, and there can be interpersonal consequences of excessive and problematic gaming. So I'll touch on all these issues one by one. I would like to highlight some of the key themes that are relevant on these aspects. There are other factors that also play a role, and I'll be touching upon them rather briefly towards the end of my presentation. So let's begin with the physical health. Now, gaming is an activity, as I mentioned earlier, that includes an interaction with a human being who is engaging in that behavior. And the human being engages with gaming both with the mind or the brain as well as with the body. And if you don't use your body in the right way while you are gaming, there can be adverse consequences. Now, in context of physical health, there are three factors that determine what can be the negative implications or negative outcomes. First, while you are gaming, you might tend to use certain parts of your body or certain bodily systems excessively, and that can result in overuse and overuse related problems. That is one way the physical health may get impacted. The second way could be that you are using a particular body part in an improper way. For example, you might not be using that body part in the right posture, or you are keeping it in a posture which is not healthy. So that can be the second reason why there can be adverse physical health implications. And finally, since gaming is a sedentary activity where you are usually sitting, at times even lying down while gaming, it doesn't involve a lot of movement of the body per se. So there is some adverse consequence which are because of limited activities of the body. So these are three particular reasons which eventually contribute to negative physical health effects. Now let's learn what are some of the important negative physical health consequences of excessive gaming. One of the commonest described and observed negative physical health implication of excessive gaming is to do with the excessive and improper use of certain bodily joints. For example, the joints in our wrist, joints in our thumbs and in our fingers. So what happens is when you are gaming, you are using either a console and kind of a controller to engage with that console, or it can be the thumbs or the fingers that you are using to kind of operate a mobile phone or another device through which you are kind of interacting with the gaming platform. So if you are using these bodily joints excessively, especially if your posture is not correct, you can have pain in these joints. So people who game excessively, they may present with complaints of pain in the joints in their thumb. They may present with pain in their wrist joints. There is a syndrome called carpal tunnel syndrome where there is pain and discomfort in the wrist if you use your wrist using a mouse or a keyboard in improper fashion for a long period of time. So that's the first set of adverse physical consequences that can result. The second set of adverse physical consequences is also related to improper posture. So while you are gaming, and if you are not seated properly, for example, if you are slouching, if you are not sitting straight, if you are bent at your neck or your back, and if you maintain that posture for a long time without taking breaks in between, you might develop pain in your neck and pain in your back. And these are certain complaints which can persist even for a long time. There are cases where people who have been gaming excessively in the wrong posture, they tend to persist with these pains even when they stop gaming. So this again is a kind of a serious adverse physical health consequence of excessive gaming. People also report that they may experience headaches at times because you are looking at a screen for a long period of time, a screen where the content is changing at a very fast pace. You are seeing different frames, different kind of activities that are going on. It's not just a visual experience, you are also having an audio experience as well. You might be seated in a room which is probably not very well ventilated, your posture is not correct, and all these can contribute to experiences of headaches as well. This is also related to having problems with your eyesight at time. If you have a refractive error, that means if you have poor eyesight, you have a weak eyesight, and you are trying to look on a screen where the images are not very clear or they are pixelated, and you are kind of focused on a screen for a very lengthy period of time, you can even develop headaches because of excessive gaming. Eyes, they play a very crucial role. You are using eyes constantly while you are gaming. Actually your gaze is kind of fixed onto the screen. So there are many negative effects that can be experienced in context of ocular problems or the problems related to the eye. There can be dryness of eye, there can be redness of eye. People who have existing refractive error, it can lead to kind of even blurred vision while they are excessively gaming. They can also experience double vision. So there are a lot of problems that can happen if you use, if you are engaged in gaming and your eyesight is kind of fixed on a particular screen, and if you don't change your gaze frequently in between. In fact, there is a particular kind of syndrome that has been described. It's called computer vision syndrome. This tends to happen in people who look at screens for extended period of time without taking breaks in between. So what happens is when you look at a screen, it's basically pixels that you're looking at. So every image or every font that we see on a screen is actually the end result of pixels. And if an image or a text is pixelated, or if the screen resolution is not very good, you kind of need to strain because the text or the image may not be very clear. Also, if you already have poor eyesight, then you might have to strain extra while you are trying to focus on the screen that you are looking at. And many times, if you don't blink frequently, you can experience dryness in your eyes. So this is a kind of a syndrome where there can be problems related to eyes. A person can experience headaches. There can be aches in the neck as well as in the back, and there can be overall muscle fatigue. So this is a fairly commonly described syndrome that can be seen among people who game excessively in incorrect posture and without taking breaks in between. Another important area of our body which usually people don't talk about much is related to health of our ears or the oral health. So as I mentioned earlier, most of the games that we engage in, they have a visual element as well as an auditory element. And if you are exposed to loud noises, especially for longer period of times, it can lead to hearing damage. It can be a temporary hearing damage. That means that the hearing loss that lasts for some time, but then it gradually recovers if you are not exposed to sounds for some period of time. At times there can be even permanent damage, or it can last for a long time. So especially if you use a very loud noise, if you keep the volume very high, even if you are using an earphone, and if you keep the volume at its maximum, and if you are exposed to it for a longer period of time, there can be damage to your hearing capacity as well. Besides the organ systems that I have discussed and described till now, there are certain inherent behaviors that we have on a day-to-day basis. These are normal physiological routines that we follow. For example, sleep-wake cycle. That means that everybody usually has a pattern, a particular time or a rough time when a person likes to go to bed, and then the time when they want to get up and get going about the day. If you are gaming excessively, and if you happen to game maybe at odd hours or for long hours, it will eat into your sleep time. So what might happen is that you tend to remain awake later in the night, you sleep later, but then as a student you are expected to get up and go to school as per the schedule. So what happens is that the total duration of time, the total duration of sleep that you are getting in a particular 24-hour cycle may not be adequate, and it leads to disturbance of that sleep-wake cycle. What happens is that for a few days you may sustain by maybe sleeping less for a couple of nights, but then it gets kind of accumulated, and then it impacts your activity during the next day. So you may feel sleepy during the day, you may not be as fresh as you would like to be, and you may not be able to concentrate on the task at hand, which may be the class that you are attending, or a sport that you are participating in, or in general during your day-to-day routine you might feel fatigued and tired and not fresh all the time. So if the gaming interferes with the sleep, then all those complications can arise. Another important daily routine that gets impacted by excessive gaming is our eating habits. When a person starts gaming excessively, they need to find that time to game. And in that quest to kind of get as much time as possible for gaming, people look for times from other activities that they are engaged in. There are times when students will be kind of engaged in gaming even when they are supposed to be on dining table or have their meals. There may be instances when you are eating and gaming side by side. It might also change the way you have your meals. You might be in a hurry. You might to finish it as fast as possible. You may at times even skip your meals. And we have had examples where, especially those students who are living in hostels, they might miss their meals many times in a week, and that can impact on general physical health and well-being, and even nutritional deficiencies can result. So those are those kind of concerns. At the same time, we can see something very different in context of eating and the consequences. As I mentioned earlier, gaming is a sedentary activity, so you are seated most of the time. And since you are seated for long hours, if you are gaming excessively, you might not be engaged in physical activity, which is important for us. At the same time, people who engage in gaming may eat junk food more often than not. So what happens is eventually your calorie intake may increase, pure calories without other nutrients, and since you are not able to spend them because your physical activity has reduced, you might end up putting on weight more than what you are expected for your age and height. And it can eventually lead to obesity, and we know that obesity can lead to so many different health problems later on in our life. So that's the other domain through which the physical health can be impacted. So as I have described, in terms of physical well-being, excessive gaming impacts multiple bodily organs and systems. It also impacts various physiological aspects of our daily living. Now let's move on to the second section, which is to do with our socio-emotional well-being or our mental health. Now in context of mental health, similar to the physical health, there can be many potential adverse effects. Gaming is not just a physical activity. It involves active attention. It involves active participation in our mental faculties. It can lead to adverse mental health consequences as well. And I'll be touching upon a few of them now. Now in context of adverse mental health consequences, there are two ways of looking at it. There are certain consequences which are related to our well-being, and by that what I mean is that excessive gaming can affect our mental health negatively or adversely. So that's the well-being part of it. But at the same time, when you engage in gaming and if you use certain gaming platforms, you may run risk of compromising your safety as well. And the safety can be both in terms of your physical safety as well as psychological safety. I'll explain that just in a while. So you would have heard of the concept called bullying, the term bullying, where a person or a group of people try to intimidate somebody. The same phenomena, when it moves to an online platform or through digital devices, it's called cyberbullying. Now we know that there are certain games and gaming platforms where you play with your friends or other players. So you might not be the only player in that particular game and you are engaged with a group of people. There are instances where we have seen students who have come to us who have been victims of cyberbullying. And cyberbullying, like bullying in in-person setting or a physical world, can be a very challenging situation. It can be a very difficult scenario to deal with. Usually we talk about the power equation when it comes to bullying. So the bully is usually a person maybe of a greater physical strength, or since they're part of a larger group, they have an edge over the person who's being bullied. But when it comes to cyberbullying, those barriers kind of break away and any person can intimidate somebody else if he or she has an intention to do so. Also, the physical bullying or in-person bullying is usually restricted to face-to-face interactions. That is, you meet that person and then you go through that event or experience. But when it comes to cyberbullying, the event or the episode can be never-ending. You might be bullied all the time. The post that was made against you or the comment was made against you may remain there online forever. And even a larger section of your group will come to know of this happening. So this is, in my opinion, even worse than bullying in physical world or in physical space. So that's one of the safety concerns when it comes to mental well-being and gaming. The second one is cyber stalking. Now this again draws parallel from stalking in real world. When a particular person kind of follows another person against the will and wish with an intent to kind of potentially do some harm, which is not desirable by the person who is being stalked. The same phenomena can happen through digital platforms as well. And there are victims of cyber stalking that can experience the mental trauma of going through that agony of being stalked online. The third safety concern in context of mental well-being while gaming online is the cyber grooming. Now this is a phenomena where a particular person kind of engages the victim in communication or interactions with an aim to either solicit online sexual activities or even offline real world activities of this nature. Since while you are gaming, you may come in contact with people whom you might not know. There are certain gaming rooms which are open. You don't know the identity of the other players, and you have an opportunity to even engage in chatting, text-based chatting, and even audio-video chatting in certain games. And thereby you can come in contact with certain people who have these intentions, and this can even be physically dangerous for a particular person. So these are some of the adverse consequences from the safety perspective. Excessive gaming can have a negative effect on our mental health and well-being. There is a good amount of evidence that suggests that people who have excessive gaming, they have a higher risk of having negative mood states. And negative mood states mean that we experience depressive feelings or anxiety feelings. So people who engage in excessive gaming, the risk of these people having these disorders, it goes up. And we know that depression and anxiety are very common mental health problems, and excessive gaming is one of the contributors for these set of disorders. Another aspect that is relevant to certain games is the exposure or excessive exposure to violence and aggression. There are certain games which are war-based games, which include physical fights in a simulated environment as a team or between two individuals. And it has been seen that people or children who are exposed excessively to this online aggression, their threshold or their sensitivity to violence in real world also goes down. So what that means is that when these people encounter violence in in-person settings, they might not have the same or similar reaction, and they might even see it as a normative behavior in real world. This has important implications in terms of people expressing or communicating with others. Since your own threshold for aggression and physical violence is low, your likelihood of engaging in physical aggression or even verbal aggression in real world, it can go up, and that's especially true for certain games that involve violence. Now, another important aspect that we need to focus in context of excessive gaming is what is commonly known among us as gaming addiction. This is basically when a person engages in gaming in an excessive manner to an extent where you lose your control over game. It develops into a mental disorder, which is called gaming disorder. This is characterized by a person losing control over their gaming behavior. And by that what I mean is that usually human beings are able to control their behavior. They may choose when to do it, they may choose when to stop it. But when you lose that control, you are not able to decide that when should I start gaming or for how long will I game, what is not the right time or a situation for me to game. And despite of knowing that I should not game at this particular point in time, you are not able to control yourself. So that is one of the features. The second one is that since you are spending excessive time gaming, you kind of neglect alternate activities and responsibilities in your life. It may be your studies, it may be your going out and playing in the playground, interacting with your parents and your peers. So you start neglecting other important things in your life. And finally, if you know that your gaming has led to certain problems and still you are not able to reduce and stop it, that again is an indicator that you have a disorder which is called as gaming disorder. This might be a new information for some of us, but gaming disorder has been included as a diagnosable mental disorder by World Health Organization. And we do get certain cases in our clinic where adolescents and children, they come to us with this disorder, which we need to diagnose and then manage as a medical condition. Now, these are some of the common mental health issues that can come up, but it doesn't end there. If we look at a person and it's his or her well-being in a comprehensive manner, we need to see the other aspects of their life as well. And when it comes to students, one of the important domains is their academic life. So the physical well-being and socio-emotional well-being, it is not complete if we don't talk about the impact of gaming on educational performance of students. There is research that has shown that if you engage as a student excessively in gaming, it can impact your studies. It can lead to absenteeism. It can lead to poor attention and concentration while you are in the class. It can lead to poor motivation to study. You may start neglecting your studies, your grades can go down, and if the situation worsens, you may even fail in a particular class. So the gaming can have important academic consequences which are deleterious for a particular student. That can happen. Besides and beyond that, it can impact the interpersonal relations as well, because if you're spending a lot of time gaming, you're taking that time away from somewhere, and one of the areas from where the time gets away is your interaction with your parents, your peers, your teachers, and other people around you. There might be people in your life who might not appreciating the kind of time you're spending gaming. It can lead to frictions. You might be gaming at odd hours or maybe in wrong settings, for example, while you are on the eating table, and that can lead to a friction between you and your parents and those who care for you. So excessive gaming can have interpersonal challenges associated with them as well. Finally, another set of problems that can happen, those who game excessively and in a problematic manner, is financial implications. There are many games that are paid, and within the games which might not be paid to subscribe to, you might have to buy certain things. Maybe you have to buy some skins, you might have to buy some coins. If you have to reach another level or play a particular kind of platform, you might have to spend money to do that. And these days, when we talk of certain activities which are being promoted as games, for example, fantasy sports, you may actually be putting your money with an expectation that it will grow, and you might eventually end up losing your money. So that's another set of undesirable complications that can happen because of excessive gaming. Now, while these different complications, they seem different categories or groups, I think they are quite interconnected with each other. If you have a problem in a particular domain in your life, for example, you are not able to use your thumb for a while because you have developed pain in your thumb because of excessive gaming, that doesn't remain a physical problem. If you have that pain in your thumb, and if it's the thumb of your writing hand, you won't be able to use it very effectively while you are in your class. It will impact your performance in your exam. If your results are not good, you could not study well because you were gaming excessively, and then you could not write well while you attempted the exam. It may lead to negative emotional feelings. Since you are not performing well, your parents might not appreciate it, and it can lead to interpersonal issues. So all these issues are interconnected, and if a problem emerges in one of the areas in your life, it's very likely that it might impact other areas as well. So that's why it's very important that we talk of gaming at its implication in terms of well-being in all these domains. Now, another important thing that we need to remember is that when we are talking of gaming, we are talking of gaming that happens during the course of the day. And as we all know, we all have fixed number of hours in a day. So even if you simply increase the time you spend gaming, you are kind of taking the time out or away from certain other activities. Like if you see at this chart, here I have drawn the time a person spends gaming. And as the proportion of that time increases, you can see the rest of the time during the day that is available to a student, it goes down. And what is this time required for? Sleeping adequately, eating well, playing out and going out and playing some kind of a physical sport, studying, interacting with your friends, interacting with your parents, and doing some other extracurricular activities. So if you are spending more time while you are gaming, it is bound to impact all other aspects of your day. You might not have adequate time to learn new skills. You might not have adequate time to sleep and get refreshed for the next day. You might not have adequate time to do what is expected of you as a student or as a son or as a daughter. So that's very important. It's very important that we kind of pick up problematic and excessive gaming as early as possible. It is important because if there is a delay in detection of excessive and problematic gaming, the problem can escalate, and as the problem escalates, the adverse consequences are expected to go up as well. So there are certain ways in which we can see for ourselves. I mean, we don't need a professional to tell us that you are having problems with your gaming. There are certain indicators which will tell us that yes, maybe I need to revisit my gaming behavior and need to do something about it. The first one is quite obvious. Please have a look at amount of time you spend gaming. If you are spending excessive time, that means there is likely to be a problem. You might not be having adverse consequences today, but since you are spending a lot of time gaming, you are taking that time away from other important routines in your life. So those effects or those negative effects will eventually happen. So that is one important thing that we need to be aware and conscious of. So please try to regulate the kind of time that you spend. If you are spending excessive time, then there is a problem. But in my opinion, even more important than amount of time that you spend is the motives behind your gaming behavior. As I mentioned in the beginning of my presentation, we engage in gaming for different reasons. So there may be reasons such as you want to experience some activity which doesn't which isn't available on any other platform or in any other way. It might be a competitive activity for you. It might be an opportunity to engage with your peer group or your partners online while you are doing something together with them. But at the same time, people do engage in gaming for certain unhealthy reasons. For example, it might be a way to escape from reality. You are facing certain challenges in your in-person or real life, and you want to avoid them, but you don't have a way to find answers to those problems in an effective manner, and gaming can distract you from that. Now, if your motives for gaming are of that nature, then it's a red flag sign, because what you are doing is you are trying to put your problems, or you are trying to kind of brush your problems under a carpet, hoping that they will get resolved on their own. But no, they remain there. If you don't handle them effectively, they remain, and they may even escalate. So you must kind of ask yourself, why are you gaming? And if the reasons or the motives are not correct, that is another indicator that you might be eventually heading towards problematic gaming. The next point is, what is your expectation? What is it that you expect from your gaming behavior? Is it just for recreation? Is it just to spend some time online with one of your buddies or your group of friends? Is it something that you see as a way to substitute some important activities in your life? So if you are using gaming as a substitution for something, for example, I like to interact with my peer group, but I won't go out and play with them in the playground. Why don't I invite them online for a session of game? So you're kind of substituting one activity for the other. If that is happening, that again is an indicator that you are moving in the wrong direction. Eventually it becomes a pattern, and for a person this becomes a habit. And then what happens is that for certain activities that can be done in a different way, gaming becomes one of the substitutes. Another way it can happen is that rather than interacting with other people in person, you may start interacting or favoring interacting with them in an online mode. So that's another kind of challenge that can come up. Another important thing that we need to look at is that, is there a change or a difference in the way I interact with people around me? The kind of time you are spending with your parents, the kind of time and the quality of time that you are spending with your siblings, your friends and peers. If there is a change in that, that again is an indicator that you are heading in the wrong direction. And finally, if your gaming is restricted in some way, it may be because there are no opportunities for you to game, or there is a reason for your parents to tell you not to game on a particular day or a particular time, and if leads to feelings of aggression, hostility, frustration, that means that probably you are losing control over your gaming. So these are some of the indicators that can tell us or guide us or help us detect problematic gaming at an early stage. Now, having known how to detect it, can we do something about it? Yes, we can do a lot. At our own level, there are many things that can be done. And I'll tell you a few simple things that can be done. First is, since it's an interaction between a platform and a human being, things can be modified at both the ends. So we need to kind of identify what are the factors that kind of increase the risk of problematic gaming, and what are the factors that can help us reducing problematic gaming. So one of the first things that we should ask ourselves is that the kind of game that I am playing, is it age appropriate or not? If you look at the developers of these games or the platforms that host these games, many of them they have defined the age group for which a particular game is meant. So please don't play a game which is not meant for your age. Play a game that is appropriate for your age. It's not available for all the games, but for the major platforms that offer games, that age restriction or limitation is available. Please respect that. That is for a purpose. Second, when you are gaming, don't game at odd hours. For example, don't game late at night. Don't game early in the morning. Don't game when you are supposed to study. Don't game when you are supposed to go out and play a game in a playground. Don't game when you are supposed to eat. So try not to eat into time for other important activities or daily routines that are important, and don't game at those hours. Don't use gaming as a substitute. Try to do activities on other physical platforms or by using other means which can be done that way. Don't use gaming as a substitute. Try to have a daily routine. It's important. It sounds very simple, but it's a good idea to have a timetable. Yes, your gaming can fit in. There can be a slot for it during a day, but it has to be a fixed slot. It should not interfere with other important activities of your life. Also, when you are gaming, try to take care of certain ergonomic and posture related things. Try to sit straight. Keep at least an arm's distance between your eyes and the screen. The height of the screen should be either at the level of your eyes or slightly lower than that. Keep your elbows at around 90 degrees of angle. The keyboard and the mouse should be slightly lower than your forearms. So these postures will help you prevent some of the problems that we discussed in the earlier part of the presentation. Do take breaks. Don't keep seated for a long time. For every 20 minutes of seating, try to stand up, try to walk. It will help take the tension away from certain muscle groups. It will improve the blood circulation and it will be beneficial. Try to shift between sitting and standing. That doesn't necessarily mean that you stop doing the activity, but yes, you can stand and still use the device if you want to do so. So try to circulate between sitting and standing. Don't slouch, sit up straight, keep your back and neck straight. That's very important for maintaining a good posture. When you are using a portable device, try to keep it at the level of your eyes. Don't keep it very low so that there is a strain on your neck. Finally, what is important is that we need to strike a balance in our life, and the same holds true in context of gaming as well. Not everybody who games has a problem. In fact, majority don't. But yes, since you are gaming, it can eventually lead to a problem if you don't pay attention to it. So do try to strike a balance. Have time for gaming, but do remember to have time for other activities and responsibilities as well. There might be some of us who develop the problematic gaming and even gaming disorder. In such situations, you must seek formal help from a mental health professional. As I mentioned earlier, this is a diagnosable condition now and help is available. So you should seek out help if there is need. So finally, I'll sum up by putting it in a very simple way that when you decide to game, ensure that you game in a safe and healthy manner. That's very important for our well-being. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yatan sir, for providing all these information. I think so far what we covered in this session is how this online gaming can affect our physical and mental health as well. You also told our students, informed our students that how we can detect this problematic gaming disorder and how that can be overcome as well. Though since for whole this month we have been imparting this knowledge, and we have been doing this throughout this series on online gaming, digital gaming, that how it will be affecting and it is affecting our physical and mental, and how we can maintain a balance in all this. So before we conclude our session, do you have any concluding advice or concluding remarks to all our students and viewers?
So my simple suggestion is this, that if you are a person who engages in gaming, please be cognizant of your behavior. Be aware what you are engaged in. Be aware what you are playing. Be aware with whom you are playing. Be aware that if you don't pay attention to your gaming behavior, you might eventually end up having certain problems. And most of these problems are preventable if you take the right kind of steps at your end. Try to maintain the correct posture, game for the right reasons, play the right kind of games which are appropriate for you, play it with the right kind of people, and let the games have their space in your life, but not let them take over your life. So try to be cognizant of what you're doing and try to game safely and in a healthy manner.
Absolutely, and I hope with all these tips and tricks that our expert Yatan sir have provided to our students, to our viewers, they can get back their balance in their life, which they must have missed somehow in the way of this online or digital gaming. So before we conclude this session, I would like to inform that this is the fourth and the last session of this series on safe digital gaming, and we will be soon launching our quiz for the same on the based on these sessions. So I'll navigate you through how you can participate in the quiz, and the quiz will be live on Monday somewhere around 5 p.m. So you need to go on the website of CIET and you need to click on events, and that you need to go on workshop and training. It will lead to this page. You can scroll down. Here you will see this current activity. This is the theme for entire month of August. You can click on here. These are all the details that we have been running for the month of August. What is Cyber Jaagrookta Diwas, about our theme, objectives that we have been put in this theme. Who can participate? All the details have been given. This is the program schedule. Day 1, Day 2, Day 3, and today was Day 4. As I told you, today is the last day of this series. These are the instructions that how you can participate for the quiz that will be live on Monday. This is where the link, the quiz link will be updated. It is showing here that it will be updated on 19th of August, that is today. But unfortunately, the quiz will not be live on today. That will be on Monday around 5 p.m. So you can go visit our website on Monday around 5 p.m. only, and you can participate then. And this is the email address. We have been a lot of viewers joined with us through YouTube channel. They're asking us for the feedback link. So this is the email address. I'll say it again. That is cybersafety@cit.nic.in. This is this email address through which you can raise your queries, or you can share your feedback with us for this entire series or for this particular session. So with this session, we wrap up this session here. Stay connected to PM with the channel and NCRT official. We will be back with another session of Socio. Namaskar.